Oh, hi there. Hello, dear YouTube Sangha. Welcome to the first of the new series that I'm creating called Conjuring Coalitions. It's going to be a little bit of a chapter in the study of what it means to balance out individualism and collectivism. And also, it is a response to a lot of the symptoms of the polycrisis that is cropping up in our way of life in modern society. In this episode, we'll be discussing America's premier doctrines called the Federalist Papers, and essentially what those entailed and how they enshrine the value of social justice as a means of ushering a collective well-being for all Americans in our society. It has its roots in something called eudaimonia, which is the Greek word for the good life. And we know it as the triple sort of tenets of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So without any further ado, let's get into it. The Federalist Papers are a foundational element in the development of American political philosophy, playing a pivotal role in articulating and defending the principles upon which the United States Constitution was established. These documents, written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay in the late 18th century, are often viewed as expressions of the political ideals that would guide the American Republic. While the Federalist Papers address a variety of concerns, such as the need for a strong federal government and the necessity of checks and balances, they also lay the groundwork for an irrevocable element of social justice. Through an exploration of their emphasis on popular sovereignty, individual rights, and the common good, it becomes evident that the ideals espoused in the Federalist Papers align with key aspects of social justice, especially when analyzed through the lens of John Rawls' theory of justice. Additionally, when combined with engaged Buddhism's principles of compassion and nonviolence, the Federalist Papers reflect a broader vision of a more just and equitable society that emphasizes the care of all people, regardless of their background. The Federalist Papers were written to support the ratification of the U.S. Constitution, which replaced the Articles of Confederation and created a more centralized government. Central to their argument was the idea of popular sovereignty, the belief that the authority of the government derives from the people themselves, rather than from divine right or hereditary power. In Federalist 39, Madison articulates this idea, explaining that the Constitution is a compound republic in which the people retain ultimate sovereignty, but the government is structured in a way that ensures a balance of power and a system of checks and balances. The very foundation of the Constitution, as outlined in the Federalist Papers, rests on the idea that the people, regardless of their background, should have a say in their governance. This concept aligns with the modern understanding of social justice, which emphasizes the equitable treatment of all individuals, especially marginalized groups. Madison and Hamilton, despite the limited suffrage of their time, acknowledged that governance should be designed to reflect the will of the people. Though they did not envision a truly inclusive democracy, as it would take centuries before all citizens were granted the right to vote, the notion of popular sovereignty provided a crucial foundation for the eventual expansion of rights and the implementation of social justice reforms. The Federalist Papers also emphasized the need for a government that works for the common good, a central tenet in both social justice philosophy and Rawls's theory of justice. In Federalist 10, Madison addresses the problem of factions, groups of people whose interests are at odds with the public good. He argues that a large republic can better control the effects of factions, as it encourages compromise and requires individuals to broaden their perspectives in order to find common ground. The common good, Madison suggests, is not served by catering exclusively to the desires of any one group or individual, but by creating a system where the interests of all people can be considered in a fair and balanced way. This idea dovetails with Rawls's concept of justice as fairness, which holds that social and economic inequalities should only be allowed if they benefit the least advantaged members of society. According to Rawls, a just society is one that prioritizes the well-being of its most vulnerable members. In Federalist 51, Madison writes about the importance of protecting individual rights from both the government and the tyranny of the majority. This principle aligns with Rawls's difference principle, which states that social and economic inequalities should be arranged to the greatest benefit of the least advantaged. By framing the Constitution as a tool to protect individuals from abuses of power and to ensure a fair system of governance, the Federalist Papers anticipate a framework for social justice that would later be articulated by thinkers like Rawls. John Rawls' theory of justice, most famously articulated in A Theory of Justice, is one of the most influential modern frameworks for understanding social justice. Rawls begins with a thought experiment called the original position, in which individuals are asked to choose the principles of justice behind a veil of ignorance that obscures their knowledge of their own social status, wealth, or personal characteristics. The idea is that people, in the absence of self-interest, would design a society that promotes fairness and equality for all. According to Rawls, there are two principles of justice that any rational person would choose in this situation. Number one, each person should have equal rights to a system of liberties that is compatible with the liberties of others. And two, social and economic inequalities should be arranged so that they benefit the least advantaged members of society. The Federalist Papers contain elements that anticipate Rawls's vision of a just society, particularly in their emphasis on the protection of individual rights and the common good. While the framers of the Constitution did not have Rawls's theoretical framework in mind, their arguments for a more balanced and equitable system of governance align with his principles by intentions. For example, Madison's argument in Federalist 51 for the separation of powers and checks and balances reflects a concern with protecting individuals from both government overreach and the tyranny of the majority, two threats that Rawls would later identify as central to the injustice of social systems. Additionally, the Federalist Papers recognize that the protection of individual liberties is crucial to creating a just society, which echoes Rawls's first principle of justice. Engaged Buddhism, a movement that seeks to apply Buddhist teachings to social, political, and environmental issues, also offers valuable insights into the relationship between social justice and governance. Engaged Buddhism emphasizes principles such as mindfulness, compassion, and nonviolence as central to creating a just and equitable society. Thich Nhat Hanh has argued that a just society is one where the needs of all individuals are met, where people work together in harmony, and where suffering is alleviated through compassionate action. These ideals align closely with the goals of social justice, which seeks to eradicate inequality, promote human dignity, and ensure that all people have the resources they need to thrive. Like the Federalist Papers and Rawls' theory of justice, Engaged Buddhism emphasizes the importance of caring for others regardless of their background or social status. In the Buddhist view, all sentient beings are interconnected, and the suffering of one is the suffering of all. This perspective can be seen as an extension of the Federalist Papers' concern with the common good and popular sovereignty. If the government is to serve the people, it must prioritize the well-being of all people, especially the most vulnerable. Engaged Buddhism's emphasis on compassion and mindfulness provides a framework for achieving the kind of social justice that the Federalist Papers envision, a system where every individual's needs are addressed and where the suffering of the disadvantaged is alleviated. Additionally, Engaged Buddhism's commitment to nonviolence aligns with the principles of fairness and equity found in Rawls's theory of justice. Just as Rawls advocates for the fair distribution of resources and opportunities, Engaged Buddhism calls for the removal of systemic inequalities and the cultivation of a compassionate society that values all people. The Buddhist practice of cultivating loving kindness or metta towards all beings, regardless of their background or status, reflects the ideal of a society that cares for all individuals in a deeply meaningful way. The Federalist Papers, while primarily concerned with the establishment of a strong and effective federal government, also laid the groundwork for a more just and equitable society by emphasizing popular sovereignty, individual rights, and the common good. The Federalist Papers align with key aspects of social justice. When analyzed through the lens of John Rawls' theory of justice, these documents reveal a commitment to fairness and the protection of the least advantaged members of society, thus making it wholly American. Similarly, Engaged Buddhism's focus on compassion, nonviolence, and interconnectedness complements these ideals, offering a path towards a more just and compassionate society. Together, the Federalist Papers, Rawls' theory of justice, and Engaged Buddhism provide a holistic framework for creating a society that cares for all individuals, regardless of their background, and that works towards a more equitable and just future for all. In this way, when we embody this sort of teaching and we actually adhere to what the Federalist Papers actually taught, especially given the fact that they enshrine the tenet of social justice, we can actually be more American and thus more of a citizen of the world and one that helps people in need. This is what I think would actually strengthen what it is to be American. And it supplements, it doesn't take away from, but it actually adds to who we are as a nation and as individuals. Well, my dear Sangha, if you like what you heard today, please give a like. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave a comment. If you want to hear more from this series, or if you want to look at my other series on dispelling individualism, please subscribe. And if you made it this far, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu to you.